And I will formally welcome everyone to our first professional development virtual session of the spring semester, which is presenting at academic conferences and a discussion of the Graduate School's Travel Awards. So welcome everyone. My name is John Shaffer. I'm the Associate Director for Graduate Student Success and Professional Development with the Graduate School. And like I said, I'll be talking to you today about kind of some tips of the best practices for presenting at conferences, and then talk about the travel awards that the Graduate School manages and offers every semester. So let me go ahead and share my screen. Can everybody see that? You can just give me a thumbs up. Perfect, thank you. Okay, presenting at academic conferences. So what we're gonna go over, as I kind of already gave you that nutshell version, is but to break it down a little bit more, a little bit further, we're gonna talk about the academic conference search, presentation structure and content. So what a formal research conference presentation should look like. Some public speaking tools and tips, we all can use those. Kind of how to frame out your PowerPoint. So some information on PowerPoint style. It's less about the content and more about the look. And then finally, we'll talk about the Graduate Student Professional Development Travel Awards. And as I mentioned, if you do have burning questions that you don't want to wait till the end of the presentation, you can type those into the chat and I can get those, I can grab those for you. Oh, I see that you're seeing both slides. Interesting. One moment, please. How's that? That's better. Okay, perfect. Yeah, I have two screens, and so I think that was what was kind of messing things up. So like I said, at the end, anyway, if you have burning questions that you feel like you're going to forget, you can type those into the chat. I can answer those. Well, I'll do a couple stopping points. So if you want to do that, we can. Or else, of course, you can hold your questions all the way to the end of the presentation. So let's get officially started. So where might be some places that you can look to present your research? There are a few, from, I think, smallest to greatest, of course, is the list here. With the first thing we can do is departmental brown bags. And what is that? How do you define that exactly? Departmental brown bags are a way to workshop your research, what we call workshopping the research. So let's say you're working on your thesis or your dissertation. You're down, if you have a few chapters down, or a literature review down, or background information down, and you want to kind of gauge the material. And so what you can do is, at the discretion, of course, of your department, is you can work with your department to reserve a space, set up kind of a brown bag or a lunch and learn to workshop the information you have. Or even if it's information you're thinking, okay, is this ready to submit a conference proposal? Maybe you do a brown bag first and you just workshop it. This would be, of course, free to you. Just as an FYI, the Graduate School does have a grad space where you can actually reserve it to give presentations. The number of people that fits in the room, I think, is around 10 to 16, something like that. But we have all the technology, it's free to reserve. And so you can, that is an option for you if you're wanting to like workshop your research. Of course, once we're looking to get outside of UTSA, outside of the campus, we're looking at regional, national, and international conferences. So regional, how we define them within the graduate school, regional is the state of Texas or bordering states, but in reality, regional is based on the organization that you belong to or that you're going to present for. So regional could be the entire Southeast, the entire Southwest. So for UTSA, regional, again, it depends based on the organization and the conference. But regional is usually is surrounding states, but it can go a little bit beyond that. So again, it could be the entire Southwest, the entire Southeast, etc. National conferences, of course, are anywhere. Usually those happen for an organization once a year. And you will, go somewhere within the continental United States and sometimes Hawaii, even Puerto Rico. So all those would be considered national conferences. International, obviously, anything outside the United States and United States territories. So that would be those would be the options as far as where you can start. So how do you get on the schedule to present at a conference? Most conferences, they're going to put out a call for papers well before the meeting. So, or well before the conference. So you're looking at deadlines that are 8 months prior to a conference, at least 8 months, 6 months for regional, 10 months for national, international. So if like, let's say where we are now, we're in February, I think, right? Yes, we're in February. And so you're going to be looking for conferences. If you're looking now, conferences are going to be happening and you're looking to submit a proposal to present. Conferences are happening in the summer. You may be already looking for next fall. And so you do have to consider looking for those calls for proposals way in advance of the conference you're interested in attending. So if your department is linked to a professional organization, I would go onto that organization, whether regionally or nationally or internationally. I would go onto that conference, or excuse me, that organization's website. Usually they have the conference schedules already. So even if they're not taking calls for proposals yet, it'll state when that's going to start. So that way you can plan, make sure you're ready to submit the proposal to present. Then you need to ask yourself, okay, well, while I'm looking for conferences, what types of venues are available to me to present, or what modality is available to me to present, and where maybe at this point does my paper belong? There are student panels where, self-explanatory. It's a topical panel that is all made up of students, usually in similar disciplines. Then there may be an opportunity for a thematic panel. And that is, it could be a mix of students, faculty, basically subject matter experts in certain research areas. And so maybe you can get on one of those. Roundtables is, again, similar to a panel, but rather than being part of a panel, you are maybe in a room of, I don't know how many other presenters, and people at the session are basically doing kind of round robin. So they'll go from one table to the next table. So rather than being on a panel where you're presenting jointly, you're presenting individually, but within a group. That makes sense. Plenary sessions are the gold standard, right? So that's where you're in a room, it's you, maybe a co-author or a PI, and you are presenting over your own research. So again, you want to look at the availability of what sessions are provided. And I don't know that I say the plenary sessions are gold standard, but if you're wanting to get your feet wet, I think a panel is a good place to start. Your presentation length at research conferences is typically 15 to 20 minutes, and then questions after that. So normally a session is going to be probably scheduled for 30 to 45 minutes total. That includes Q&A. So you're not going to be able to have a lot of PowerPoint slides for this. So you may be looking at 10 to 15 and spending only 60 to 90 seconds per slide, because you do have a limited amount of time and you don't want to have to rush at the end or skip something that is integral to your research presentation. So we're starting out with, now we're talking about the structure of your presentation, your PowerPoint. So you are going to start off with a title slide and introduction. So your title slide is, very similar to this. This is a title slide. So it's obviously you don't have to use this, but this is an example of a title slide. So you have the title of the presentation, the affiliation, which is UTSA, etc. Oops, did it again. 1 second, please. What did I do last time? There we go. So you're going to do presentation, title, author, name, and affiliation acknowledgements. You're not going to spend any more than 30 seconds. Again, this is, don't get in what I call like an anecdotal rut. So you're presenting your topic for like 1 minute, 2 minutes, 3 minutes. You're cutting into your time. So really introduce yourself, introduce your research topic, and then you can go into the introduction. So the introduction is going to be 1 slide. Again, no more than 60 seconds of providing an overview of your topic, as introductions do. Literature review and background. Most of you will have a literature review or a background or both. This is going to be 3 to 4 slides, 1 minute per slide, because again, this is what I call like the support information for your research, right? So you're not wanting to spend the majority of your time on this part because it's not your research. It is the background and foundation, maybe, for your research, a springboard for your research, but this is other people's work mostly. So you just want to spend maybe 3 to 4 minutes tops. First slide is going to be a theoretical orientation if you have one. The next 2 to 3 slides are going to be an overview of previous research. And then, of course, you do want to make sure in this part of the presentation that you are utilizing your citation style format, and you can place those citations at the bottom of the screen, or you can put it all compiled at the end, however you want to do it. Now, of course, you're not going to reference the citations, but they need to be there. Then you're going to go into the meat and potatoes, which is your information. So the current study, your research being done. And you can talk about, this is going to be 1 slide. You can talk about research questions, etc. So one thing you're going to talk about is methodology. This is going to be the first slide of what I call the kind of the body of your presentation. Data, sample measures, variables. The second slide will be an analytics strategy. Now, one thing I want to caution you as a presenter, as a research presenter, is this is how you collected your data, right? This was the methodology for how you did the research and the data compilation, etc. You don't want to, again, spend too much time on the how, because everyone, you want to mention it and you want to, it needs to be stressed, but they want to know the why, the what happened, not the how necessarily it happened, although that is going to be part of your presentation. So this is where we're going to talk about that, your findings. So tables or no tables, ultimately that's up to you, but let me explain something to you. People are going to be watching this presentation, whether you're using PowerPoint or some other medium to present your research. It's going to be up on a screen. The screen's normally going to be large unless this is a virtual session. The screen's normally going to be large. However, if you have a bunch of tables, charts, you name it, on a PowerPoint slide, for example, or multiple, think about what is in a table. You have the charts, the graphs, whatever, you have small print, right? They can see the kind of the basics of the table because you have a bar graph or a pie chart or whatever, a line graph, but they can't see the actual data information, like the data points. What is that? So you need to decide whether tables are effective in your presentation. And if you are using a table, try to use no more than 1 or 2 tables on a slide, because then that'll make the printing larger, people will be able to see it. But again, that's a judgment call, but ultimately they can be hard to read and to follow. And yes, descriptive statistics, not necessarily. The findings are going to be 2 to 3 slides. I always encourage people, when you're putting together a presentation, any presentation, that you're comfortable enough with the material, which it's your research, so you should be fairly comfortable, where you should be able to have key points on a slide and then be able to springboard off of those key points. You don't want to have all of the information on the slide, because then suddenly people are reading your presentation rather than listening to you. So just kind of take all those things into consideration. Additionally, with the findings, of course, as I mentioned, this is the meat and potatoes of your presentation. And people are here to listen to this part of your presentation primarily, so it's given the most amount of time. And as I said earlier, avoid focusing on what is the minutia of statistical analyses. Now, granted, this is where you put in the majority of your work, is the data compilation and or acquiring the data and the analyses of the data. And so you want people to know that, right? But ultimately, they want to know the findings and the implications of those findings. That's the big piece of your presentation. So make sure to give that the most time, and don't, again, get too much stuck in the minutia of the statistical analyses. Then you're going to have your conclusion, which is 1 to 2 slides. You can revisit the highlights, just reminders. Was your study significant, insignificant? Was there anything surprising you found out? Are there any limitations? But keep them. You don't always have to put what are the limitations of your study, but try to keep it to only 1 or 2 if there are, and you just want to, if you want to comment on it, because no one wants to hear if your study, stinks. They want to hear They want to hear success. They're here to listen to success. Future research, you can, of course, toss around one or two ideas of options where the research can go. Okay, so let's talk. Let me hold there and let me see if you all have any questions. Let's see. Let's see. Okay. How long before a conference or event do I need to apply for a travel grant? I'll talk about all that when we get to the travel award stuff. Is there any limitation for the travel fund? We'll answer those questions then. Since we need to plan so far ahead, do you recommend being finished with your research before applying to present? I would say be finished with a certain portion of it. Like I said, there may be pieces you can present at a conference without having a completed research, totally fleshed out, completed research project. So, you know, if you have maybe an essay's worth for one part, then you can, you know, definitely look to present that at a conference. Is there a slide template we are supposed to use as part of the UTSA programs? Good question. The answer is yes and no. There's not anything required, but we do recommend that you use the UTSA university, not graduate school, the university standard template to develop your presentations. And if you want to receive that, you can email me, or you can email gradengage@utsa.edu. Let me type that in. gradengage@utsa.edu. Let us know that's what you're wanting, the university template for presentations, and we'll email that back to you. Usually we can get it back to you within 24 to 48 hours. Let's see. Feedback I got after one conference was to not read off a paper. Any advice on note cards? Yeah, we'll talk about that. We're going to talk about keys to public speaking. So I know how to remember all the info correctly required for 15 minutes. Yeah, we'll talk about that. Okay, so let's keep going. Let me see how I'm doing on time. Oh yeah, we're good. Okay, keys to public speaking. First of all, you want to relax. Everyone gets some form of public speaking anxiety. Whether it be a scale of 1 to 10, it could be a 1, it could be a 10. But always own the fact that no one in the room knows more about your study than you do. So you are the expert. You need to speak as if you know. You need to speak as if you are interested and interesting. So interested in the topic, you should, because it's your research, and interesting. So your presentation style needs to be engaging. You of course want to be prepared. Don't wait until the last minute to put your presentation together. You want to have this done, your presentation done, at least a first draft of it, first draft. I would say at least minimum 2 weeks before, because you're going to spend a lot of time editing, both for content and for time. So complete that first draft. Don't worry about continuing to check yourself to see where you are on time. Just do it. Then test yourself, see how long it takes, and then edit for content and time at that point. But you need to give yourself the time to do it. Now, along with the constant editing of your presentation and reviewing kind of your outline, your notes that you're going to talk to as you go through the presentation, you're going to get more and more comfortable with the material. Now, you should already be familiar with the research because it's yours, but you're going to become more familiar with exactly how that presentation is structured. And what that means is it's going to be going going to become easier and easier for you to go from slide to slide, look at the slide, see the key points on the slide, and then be able to talk to those key points without having too much of a recall, having to have too many notes. You asked a question about having notes and you receive the feedback of do not read. I'm a firm believer of that. It makes for, no offense, it makes for a very boring presentation. Your presentations need to be, although this is research, it needs to be conversational. It needs to sound like you are talking off the cuff, like you're having a discussion, you're doing a TED Talk, right? Over whatever your topic is. So the more comfortable you are with your material, specifically the structure of the presentation, the easier it's going to be to do that. Now, I would say you do have note cards for sure, but your note cards should somewhat mirror your slide presentation, where you have the key points, you have maybe some minor notes to trigger, to jog your memory, but that you can talk to the key points off of just a simple key phrase, right? You can say, oh, it says be prepared. So I know with be prepared, I need to talk about X, Y, Z. And you just start talking about those pieces. Try not to get off topic. You need to stay focused because you have a limited amount of time. But just that's how you should practice. And that's how you'll get more and more comfortable. You can have, as I mentioned, note cards are fine. I would suggest an outline, even on the note cards. You want key points. You don't want, if you write anything out in complete sentences, you will read it. Trust me. Until you are a seasoned presenter, if you see something, this is a comfort thing. This is a nervous thing. If you see something that's in a complete sentence, you're going to read it. So try to keep the notes to key points that you need to cover. You can practice in front of the mirror or your pet. You can also practice with some friends, some family, get their feedback. And I would be asking them as much as if they're catching the content and how it's the presentation is structured, but also to your presentation style and how comfortable you look, and are they noticing any bad habits, and etc. You also want to try to speak slower than you would in regular conversation. So most people tend to talk, tend to talk faster in casual conversation. That sometimes it's hard to follow when you're listening to someone present. So you want to slow the speech, your speech pattern down. It's going to sound somewhat abnormal to you, but it just means that you're being maybe more clear. Now, you don't want to talk like this, but you just want to slow down, enunciate your words, be clear, be concise, make sure you're presenting in a way that people can understand, you. Also, nervousness causes people to rush, and you don't want to finish a 15-minute presentation in 3 minutes. Obviously, speaking and engaging me, I talked about that. Speak as if you know, because you do. Speak as if you're interesting and interested, because you are. Don't read the slides. Talked about that. Again, it's okay to glance at the slides. That's kind of keeping you on track and keeping your audience kind of in lockstep with you. So they can kind of glance up as well. Key points only. Don't put complete sentences or obviously paragraphs on slides. I'm sure we've all seen it. You've seen it. I've seen it. It's distracting. And then, of course, we go back to the person presenting is reading their presentation. Make eye contact with your audience. Don't keep your head buried in your notes or computer. I would What I would recommend is if you're presenting at a conference, you don't use any podium, table, computer as your comfort barrier between you and the audience, because we want to do that. We want to stand behind something because it makes us feel more secure. But what I want you to do, or what I want to challenge you to do, is step outside of your comfort zone. Step out in front of that table, in front of that podium, in front of the computer. Now, with that, you're going to have a clicker. So you need to invest in one if the conference doesn't provide them, so that you don't have to go back to your computer every time you need to advance a slide, right? Unless you have someone doing that for you. But yeah, I mean, they're not that expensive. You can find them on Amazon. I believe there are some in our campus bookstore, campus technology store for sure. So take a look at those and bring one with you. But that will help engage the audience more. Don't memorize your presentation. As I said, this wants to sound more like a TED Talk, a discussion, however you want to call it, a teachable moment, whatever you want to call it. This is not, again, we don't want you to sound like you're reading. If people do that, if they memorize every single line of a 15-minute presentation, that you sound robotic, and you need to sound more organic. So you need to, again, be comfortable with the content, be comfortable with what you're going to say, and have key points only. I have seen this as well, and I don't know if you have or not, turning your back on the audience. Main reason someone would do that is because they literally are reading their presentation, not off the computer screen, but actually off the screen. And I have seen this before. It's honestly a little bit embarrassing for I'm embarrassed for the presenter when they're having to do that. It's one thing to just kind of turn casually, glance up, and see what the next point is in case you're kind of off track a bit, to get you back on track. That's fine. But you don't want to fully turn and put your back to the audience and start reading. That should be self-explanatory. But since I've seen it before, obviously it's not self-explanatory. The last piece of advice I have for public speaking is be the truest version of yourself. That is going to allow you the ability to be more comfortable. You have to be a little bit vulnerable when you are presenting in front, when you're doing any type of public speaking, to make it, again, seem more organic, to really engage the audience. You want to let them into your presentation style, to who you are. That's why I want you to step out in front of a podium, in front of the table, and really engage the audience. Have a nice conversation with them about your research. Tell them a good story. That's the goal. So being yourself, if you're funny, then inject a little bit of humor. If you are gregarious and outgoing, be that way in the presentation. Because again, if you're able to just drop all the masks and the barriers and the walls because you're nervous, and just be yourself up there, you're going to have a lot more fun. And you're going to be a lot more relaxed. And your audience will recognize that. And that is virtually or in person, either way. So stylistic issues for PowerPoint presentations. Obviously, there's such a thing as technology incompetence. That still happens. I've had people that are far younger than I am, and I'm old. I've had people far younger, like 20s and 30s, tell me, well, I'm not that adept at technology. I was under the assumption that technology was almost like a second nature to generations after me. I'm Gen X, so any generation, and I'm good at technology. So I don't understand the technology incompetence part. I do understand running into technology issues. where, oh, technology fails us, because that happens all the time, where, oh, Zoom isn't starting, or my PowerPoint, my USB drive is corrupted, or the computer isn't working, that the projector isn't working, something. You always need to be prepared in case technology does fail. So I would suggest always having a hard copy of, not again, your presentation spelled out, but an outline with your key points of your presentation, so that regardless of the technology, you can still give a good talk. Do not have too many slides, colors, fonts, transitions, visuals, and animations, words. This is a professional presentation. So you want to leave all of those things, the colors, the fonts, the transitions, the visuals, animations, in undergrad. So that does not belong in a research presentation. Obviously, you don't want to have death by PowerPoint, which is too many slides, too many words. Make slides readable. Important, obviously. That goes back to, do I put a table, a graph, a chart? Do I not? Follow grammar rules. Again, it's important to make sure a bullet point makes sense. No complete sentences. No, never, ever, ever. Be consistent. Tell a consistent story from beginning to end. Avoid red and green on the same slide, which is an interesting concept. It's not because we're scared of Christmas. It's because of people that have color blindness. So avoid red and green on the same slide. Try to use your university's PowerPoint template. I mentioned that. You can get that again from Grad Engage. You can at utsa.edu, or you can email me directly. Either way works. The audience, I want to make sure I still have enough time. The audience, attack of the audience, it rarely happens. People get kind of worked up about that part, because you just don't know what's going to come at you. Just be gracious, respond to friendly and unfriendly questions. That's a quick, you can respond, that's a great question, or for future research. Be honest. If you don't know the answer, don't try to wing it. Don't make something up. Don't try to fool them. Sometimes with the difficult questions, you can say, that would be great for future research. Maybe, if you could email me, I'll provide you my contact information after the presentation, or can we talk about this after the presentation? That's a great question, etc. Okay. The big piece, the Graduate Student Professional Development Travel Awards offered by the graduate school. Maximum award amount is $750. Funds can cover travel, registration fee, food, and hotel. Now, travel could be airfare. It could be, if you're driving, it could be gas. It could be train ticket. It could be a rental car. That's all considered under travel. The award formula. So how do we determine the amount? So is everyone going to get 750? No. Do most people get 750? Yes. But we have to take your travel cost. We have to look at outside funding. If we ask you to report any outside funding, so a scholarship from UTSA, financial assistance from UTSA, or maybe a scholarship or a stipend from the conference you're attending. So we take those two pieces into consideration, your budget, your travel budget, outside funding, and that determines your award amount. Funding is available there 2 times in the fall, 2 times in the spring, and 1 time during the summer. Now, I want to make something very clear, because this is where confusion sets in. Students automatically think that as soon as they submit their application, we are reviewing, giving you an award amount, and dispersing those funds. Based on university restrictions for fund disbursement, that is not how we're able to do it. So we have 2 deadlines in the fall, 2 deadlines in the spring, and 1 deadline in the summer. applications are reviewed and awarded after each deadline, directly after each deadline. So in the fall, it's February 1st, in the spring, it's February 1st. So that just passed. So that round is closed. The next round is April 1st. The summer, I think, is June or July 1st. It's on our website. And then fall is September 1st and November 1st. So again, we do not review applications. We continue to we accept them until the deadline. We then, that's the cutoff date for that round. We will review it. We will review applications in a batch and award in a batch. So we only award and notify students 5 times a year. Okay, it's not rolling because we're not able to do that. University standards for how we can disperse funds, etc. So a student can only receive 1 GSPD award per academic year. And that is an academic year runs from fall, so August to July. So August through July, regardless of the amount. So if you are awarded, like you apply in the fall and you receive a $500 award, let's say, based on your budget, etc. You're like, well, I still have $250 left for me. So I'm going to apply again in the spring. Nope. You apply once, you get your award. That's your award for the year. We also will not over award you. So whatever most departments require you to submit your receipts and they reimburse you for funds unless they are booking. Meaning your academic department is booking your travel and your hotel. Otherwise, they're wanting receipts to reimburse you for those funds. We will not over award you. So it's not like, oh, $750, but in reality, my trip was only $550. So I get $200 just to do whatever I want. Nope, that's not how that works. We do not give free money, like to go on a spending spree. So that's, in a nutshell, it. There may be stuff I missed about the travel awards and, of course, other questions. I'm going to stop sharing my screen and I'm going to stop the recording.